There are quite a number of people here this morning who haven't been for a talk before, haven't come here for a talk before. So we'll say something about a talk, giving a talk, listening to a talk, and our relationship with each other. During this talk and also after the talk, or if we meet together. It's really not just a topic for people who come here for the first time. It is a topic of all seasons. How do we listen to each other? What do we make out of the person who sits in front of a group of people with a microphone, a cup of water? There's not a cup of water and microphone next to each one of us. And what do we make out of ourselves in sitting among a group of people sort of around a person who is talking? It's very important to ask this and to look what one makes of the person and of oneself and out of the situation as we sit here together on a beautiful spring morning. A spring morning full of bird song and snow. And at times warm sunlight streaming through the windows. What is the brain making out of all of this? The fact that someone is sitting in front of a group, does that evoke situations of teacher, student, or leader and follower, or spiritual guide and disciple? It does, doesn't it? It evokes these images and roles that one has played in the past and has seen others play in the past. And immediately, if this is evoked, the perception is affected. The perception of seeing the person, hearing the person, seeing oneself. And we're asking whether this morning, being here together, even though the situation evokes what we just described, teacher, student, guide, disciple, or whatever, whether these images which come up in us, in all of us, because we've been so trained and programmed, whether these images can be seen so that they don't affect the listening and looking, so that there can be an openness of listening and looking, unaffected by images that are there in the programs in the brain and body, or that are produced by them. The mind may insist, yes, but you are that and I am that, but one can suspend it for a while. We can go into it at some other time together, as we're doing these days, really looking very carefully over and over again. Do we play roles? What do we evoke in each other, which affects our relationship with each other deeply? And whether there can be freedom from these structures of programs conditioned into the body and mind. So that in meeting together and talking together, listening together, there can be freedom from images, and therefore a new openness of being here. and a new openness of relationship, not between superior and subordinate, or the one who's in the know and the one who doesn't know, the one who has something and the one who doesn't have something. All of this is thought and image. Do you see that? Can we see that? It has nothing to do with this moment of listening. Openly. Freely. Is that possible for a moment? It doesn't exclude the sound of the plane and the chirping of the birds, the sound of moving on a mat, the sound of the voice, the breathing happening in each one of us, heartbeat, touching of the body, the buttocks, the knees to the mat or cushion, the hands wherever they are, touching each other or the thighs. Looking and listening, attending openly together, not separate from each other as divided by ideas of what we are, not allowing the format to imprint itself indelibly or rigidly upon our perception. Seeing what a format does, it needs to be seen. One can't say, well, it doesn't matter to me at all. It may. Maybe not superficially, one may think one is beyond this, but deeply there is a feeling of me and you, and a comparative feeling. You having something and me not, or whatever. So the listening needs to be very gentle and sensitive, open for surprises of what may reveal itself from deeper layers of consciousness. A fear of the person who one thinks is an authority, or a admiration for a person in authority, or wanting something of a person that the mind projects is in authority, has authority. And what is said is simply, can all of us look together for ourselves? Right here, on this spot. Somebody is saying something with a certain tone of voice, certain background, but that doesn't matter. What matters is the looking together for ourselves. Which is amazingly possible for human beings who are interested in finding out about themselves and our relationship with each other from moment to moment. What comes up in the mind and how it affects the body, and our way then of communicating with each other, of thinking about each other, and how we think about each other again affects our body, either with tension or excitement. And then there are thoughts about these feelings of tension or excitement. I like them or I don't like them. And from those thoughts, further physical manifestations. If I don't like the way I feel, there's conflict and more tension. Can that immense process that is taking place in human beings all over the world be seen directly as it manifests in oneself, this moment? As someone is talking about it, But not just talking about it, but also looking and listening. Openly, flexibly, non-dogmatically. We had a workshop here yesterday on the balcony, talking with each other, asking questions of each other and commenting. And then we also met in the apartment in the evening. We saw a Krishnamurti video. And the question came up of what to do with the thoughts that go through the mind. Almost incessantly, the moment one wakes up in the morning, there it is, as one person put it, a horror movie. And of course the question coming up, and these questions are not remembered verbatim, they just come out now in a new way, but they have to do with the questions that are being asked of each other all the time. We may take a walk and ask questions, and all of this keeps working in this mind, and then we talk about it again in a fresh way. Maybe something has been seen. So the question, somebody coming here for the first time, is what do you do here when you sit on a mat, facing a wall or a window or other people looking inwardly? What do you do? What are you doing? Or what do you teach here in this place that people do? What are your instructions to people who come here? What to do? Because the setting, the idea about a meditation center suggests that instructions are given on how to meditate or what to do. Practices are given to people. And one wants to know, what are they? But it's not the way one assumes it is. We don't have practices. And yet the question is a very good one. What does one do as one sits down for a period of 25 minutes together quietly? We are so permeated with the program to do something that it's difficult to even imagine sitting down and not doing anything. Because since earliest days we have been programmed to do, and the people around us have done things and have verbalized about their doing things for us or for others. Parents are often very verbal about all what they're doing for their children. And admonishment for the children to do something constructive, to occupy themselves with something worthwhile. We're not saying is right or wrong. We're just looking at it, how we've been programmed and conditioned to feel the moment we sit down, we have to do something. And something starts doing too. What starts? Thought, isn't it? What should I do? Or what have I done in previous situations like this? What could I do as a practice? Follow my breath, concentrate on a word or a question. Or maybe just sit quietly. But how do I do that? I'll ask her. Maybe she can tell me how she does it, and then I'll learn how to do it. What we're asking in all simplicity and curiosity is what is going on this moment of some quiet time, which is very rare in our lives these days, exceedingly rare, to have some quiet time alone and together. Without any assigned task. Nobody has asked one to do something, to attain something, to progress in something. So here we are. What is going on? What is happening this moment? Is one interested? Is one curious to find out what, in a moment of no pressure, no demands, no tasks, no grading, report cards, or comparing one to another? What is the body and mind about? What is happening? And not just the body and mind as an enclosure, but what is happening around one, inside and out. If the question comes up, I should have some focal point, the mind is all distracted. What is the word? Scattered. Can scatteredness or distractedness be seen, felt, listened to, non-judgmentally? The word distractedness or scatteredness is already woven into feelings of judgment, isn't it? Aren't they, these words? And one can see that the moment one describes oneself to oneself as scattered or distracted, there is criticism involved. And the feelings, physical feelings, emotions that go with feeling criticized, being down on oneself. Can that be seen? Can it all be there? Whatever brought about this label of scatteredness or distractedness, and we're going to look at that. But right now we're with a label because that already superseded the original phenomenon of probably lots of different thoughts. And then the label, I'm scattered, or the self-evaluation, I'm scattered. And then the feelings and emotions that go with such self-evaluation. And then the reactions to the feelings. Can that all be listened to for maybe just a brief moment at a time? A brief moment at a time, coming to, as it were, waking up and realizing the mind was full of thoughts, and not adding another thought of judgment to it. Just the listening to what is still reverberating in the mind of the pleasure story or the horror story, still reverberating in the mind and body. And a bare attention of that with no comment. Is that possible? A judgment may already have happened, then bare attention of what came to mind and the judgment and the feelings that are involved in judging. For a moment, just that and the chirping of the birds, because that's there too. Feeling of the hands and the bottom, the breath. As we're labeling it all, it seems like just a bunch of parts. But if there's this listening openly, curiously, not tied to the labels, then it all has room in this moment of attention. The brain, with its programming, may say, so what of it? What's the big deal? That's a program running. And a program running is a narrow circuit which prevents the openness of listening spaciously, non-narrowly. That circuit of what of it, or what will it bring me? How am I doing, well or not? This closed circuit is narrow. Narrow is not a judgmental word, it is descriptive. And the narrowing down from a moment of openness is palpably experienceable by this body-mind. As is the opening up from this narrow circuit of how am I doing, or I'm not doing well, or what of it, what have I gained, to a moment of listening to the snow sliding off the roof, some movements of bodies. The breath, heartbeat, hands on the thighs or wherever they are. You see, the brain wants to record results of what is being achieved or attained. That's how we are programmed, that's how we're conditioned. What is this getting me, or humanity? And it thinks and verbalizes, just hearing thoughts or judgments or a bird call. What's the significance? It doesn't sound like very much. And in thinking this way, it's a narrow circuit. But in the openness of listening for a moment, or whatever length of time, it doesn't matter, there is something else coming into being other than just what it is that is heard, like heartbeat or crow call, or thoughts that still reverberating through body and mind. There is an openness, a non-closed, non-circuitous openness. And that's something new in our life, which is a training and conditioning and channels and circuits of which we're not aware most of the time. So a moment of awareness of that is something new, is something has nothing to do with any circuit or channel whatsoever. Although the brain will quickly enough say, what does it get me? What have I accomplished? Or will this last? What can I do with this? How can I use it? Which is conditioning, conditioned thinking. Not to be condemned, to be seen and listened to come into awareness. And also awareness of the narrowness and darkness of this channel of thinking and feeling and emoting. Someone said in a previous training, I was instructed to just let thoughts come and go and not push them away, not attach to them. Just let them happen and not bother about them. This is actually instructions in different traditional training schools. What I'm interested in right now is, what is this state of letting thoughts come and go without bothering about them? Because what is happening, what people have been telling me, and what I have experienced myself, no matter what training center one may have been to, or training one may have through one's own reading or studying, subjected oneself to, usually what one finds out that one has used the training or the meditation to shove feelings, that's how it's put, shove feelings or control them or suppress them. In spite of the instruction, let thoughts come and go and don't bother about them. And that interests me immensely right now. How is it possible with such instructions, yet to end up having shoved down or suppressed feelings and emotions? Which then, at some time or other, emerge as this horror movie. It's amazing how many people who have had meditation training of many years are now in therapy. Because the meditation training did not touch emotions and feelings. Not only did not touch, but helped in their suppression. And it's a relief to be someplace where these emotions can be looked at, allowed to emerge in a non-judgmental atmosphere. But I'm not concerned what happens other places or has happened in the past. What I'm concerned with is this happening here now? That as thoughts come and go, they're not really looked at deeply. And what does it mean to look at a thought deeply? I don't know myself right now. We're looking at this together. I haven't talked about this before. I don't think so. But in looking at it, I did look at it since last night, at times during the night. It appears as though a thought was just the tip of an iceberg. I don't know whether that's a good metaphor or not, but we'll use it tentatively. Tip of an iceberg, and 9/10 of it are below the surface. And this little tip of the iceberg, the mind allows to let come and go, but it's not in touch with the 9/10 of it, which are part of this thought. So, is it possible, as one is sitting down, to find out what is happening this moment? To really be aware of what one is thinking about. Not just say, well, let it come and go, but be aware of it deeply. Not just the content of the thoughts, but why am I thinking about this? Why does this come up again and again? Such questions may help listen and look, help listening and looking. Because something may be bothering, but it hasn't been allowed to really bother. And when something really bothers, then there will be either the energy to suppress it or the energy to wonder what in the hell is going on. Let it reveal itself, and questions will come up. Am I afraid of something? Do I want something that I haven't acknowledged wanting? Am I in conflict with something? Such questions, if they don't lead to just explanations and more talk, but to being quiet and letting something evolve or unfold in the intensity of the questioning, are very important. Because the mind may say, now, are you still meditating? Are you getting to be therapeutic? Are you getting to analyze? But this is just to be listened. This is just stuff that one can hear is happening. It doesn't need to detract from this bothering and trying to get to the root of what is bothering and allowing whatever wants to come up in openness and fearlessness. Is that possible? Seems paradoxical, doesn't it? To be in the presence of fear without fear. But not get caught up that something is paradoxical and therefore not continue. Because it is possible to listen to fear without running away. Because that's what fear is running away. Not facing. Not sticking around with what's really going on. And the mind may say, the brain may say, this isn't Zen-like, or this isn't Buddhist-like, or this isn't this-like, but that's what the program spouts. One doesn't have to go by it, doesn't have to give it credence, because there's this bothering of the horror movie, or some deep fear, or deep anger, or jealousy, envy. See, we so much concern ourselves with the surface thoughts. But what's underneath them? What's underneath them? And not speculate about it, but wonder about it and listen quietly for a while a question sort of has been shouted into the space, inner space. and one will discover how attached one is to images about oneself, and that part of the reason we're not getting in touch with anger or jealousy or envy is that we don't want to see ourselves as being that way. It's too frightening, because then we're bad girl, bad boy. There's also an ancient program. But one can see that program running, and there's no need to be afraid of seeing what goes on in this human body and mind. It's not what the image says that goes on. The image is flat and false. It has nothing to do with what goes on here. So can one see the power of a flat, false image to prevent looking, to prevent getting in touch? Because I don't want to be that way. And if that is seen, that power does not have to continue. One can look at wanting, at fearing, at envy, at greed. The words are dangerous. We just use them to converse and communicate with each other. But in looking at greed or anger or jealousy, it's best to suspend the word as soon as possible, understanding its significance, its function, and its power. And wondering with this open curiosity what this thing is, if I don't call it by any name, if I don't know it, but allow it to reveal itself freely, unmolested by my images of myself or others. We agreed a while ago on a Sunday when we talked about the whole format of talks that I would talk for a while. I think we said 30 minutes, and I've gone 11 minutes over already. But there is some time for people to say things, maybe ask questions, say things, maybe something wasn't clear or whatever. Would you like to do that?
I'm very interested in this question of not doing anything. It came up in the Krishnamurti video last night for me. Because then he says, or, no, I don't think he said this, but this is how I heard it. Don't be mediocre, don't go halfway. Be excellent in this work of not doing anything. Or Wangpo says the same thing, be diligent about not doing anything. I get stuck in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's sticky, very sticky, and gets stuckable in. Because this immediately appeals to everything one has learned to be on top, to be better than others, to excel. And one can wonder, is that what he means? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't think he does, but it's beside the point. Can one watch what such words trigger in one? Without taking sides? Is it possible to hear somebody say, don't be mediocre? Mediocre means stopping halfway up the hill. Whereas excellence means going all the way to the top. Can one see what that does to this mind and body? Or can one just listen to these words without them triggering anything? Is that possible? Somebody says that, but the attention is there to listen, to see what wants to come up, but not go with it, without suppressing it. One can see what wants to come up, all the old ambitions and feelings of inferiority that go with ambition. And remaining with the listening, inside and out. Maybe wondering what excellence is in a new way. Not being caught up in the term with its conditioned triggers and connotations. Leaving it alone, one wonders, but not to let it bring up the circuit, which one understands is lethal. It just goes around and around and around. One has been through it. And watching all of that without reaction, without doing something about it. Is that possible? Without the resolve coming up, I must do something to get to the top of the hill. And seeing how this thought, I must do something, already puts juice into the muscles, gets the heartbeat going a little bit faster. Is that kind of awareness, openness, is that our conventional doing, or is that something different?
Toni, going from that point where we experience what comes up when we ask ourselves how do we react towards a seemingly unanswerable question, as far as not doing anything and yet not being mediocre. Then we ask, well, what does he mean by this?
Doing something. I'm substituting. Mediocre is doing something about something.
But then,
I'm just inventing this right now, it comes out.
And then Krishnamurti says, but then I'm asking myself, well, what does Krishnamurti and Wang Po mean? But, I mean, they were saying something. And now I'm asking myself, well, what were they saying?
What does Wang Po mean when he says, be diligent, be diligent? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe it's their conditioning of wagging the finger a little bit, because they were brought up this way at one time in their life, and it's coming through. Who knows? They're human beings. I won't be influenced by it.
You won't be?
I don't know what I will be.
That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that, yes. Because I'm watching. If I'm not watching, I'm influenced by it. And that's maybe what he describes as mediocrity, going with the conditioning. With the patterns. And I don't mean the pattern of, somebody brought that up, when we leave the hall and walk upstairs, the brain needs to have knowledge in the body, sort of passive stored knowledge of how to walk upstairs. We're not talking about that. That conditioning functions very practically and undisturbedly, even if there's a state of awareness and not knowing. But I must achieve, I must be better. All of this programming is the mediocrity, isn't it? I don't like to use that word, and I don't use it. I don't want to get into the habit of it. That's his problem. Because it has this evaluative character. Now, be diligent is an opposite, the brain says, to be being negligent. So, brain says, am I diligent or am I negligent? And depending on our conditioning, we classify ourselves as one or the other and feel good or bad. So maybe I won't read that anymore. Why do I read that? Sometimes I leave it out. I'm trying to get out of readings, as little as I do them, all this kind of stuff. Certainly, that's why I sort of put in a disclaimer yesterday before the movie started that I'm not showing this movie because I think it's good for people or for myself. Somebody wanted me to bring it. So I went along with it. But, can one be easy about the words of others? What were you going to say?
Well, I'm just noticing that as you're talking, this huge fear is coming up in me of entropy, as we were talking about the other morning, of like, well, if we don't if there isn't some effort, then everything is just going to disintegrate.
Yeah, mediocre, average type of thing, like the entropy. One temperature for everyone. And that's a fearful specter when the mind thinks about it, right? And yet, the mind can also think or look at a new baby is born. The leaves come out on a warm day. Where does that come from? That's not a manifestation of entropy, is it? It's a manifestation of new life. That's happening in the midst of this movement toward entropy. And actually, years ago, Kyle and I were doing some work on this kind of thing. And it was already mentioned then, I don't know, it was in the 60s or 50s, that in this massive movement toward entropy, there are enclaves which don't, what was it said, that don't correspond to this kind of thing. They do, in these enclaves, something else happens, namely energy to life. So theory is never completely true, right? There are people here who know much more about this than I do. What about this thing of entropy? Where is he? What about that?
What do you want to know?
Well, according to science, is everything a movement toward entropy, or is this recognized that there's something else there?
There are regions locally where entropy decreases.
What is it?
Huh?
What is entropy?
Oh, boy. That's hard.
That should be said by a non-scientist, right?
Well, it's a tendency towards disorder in the absence of ordering energy.
Sort of an average disorder. Same temperature for everything, not hot and cool, but one ocean of sameness.
That's the end result.
That's
the result of increasing entropy.
Yes. It's the easier analogy perhaps is a drop of dye into a glass bowl of water and it will mix.
Yeah. Okay.
It will not stay as one little drop in the center of the bowl.
Yeah. But he said we don't want to get too, what do you say, specific. But that doesn't matter what the scientists say. There's new life coming out of trees. And new babies are born. And a new energy of a non-conditioned energy can manifest in any one human being, in which there is a seeing or a listening which is non-separating. Well, it only happens when there isn't this feeling of separation in the first place. And that is not mediocrity, which is moving with the patterns, with the reactions, with the conditioning, without awareness. Albeit thinking, I am very much aware, because human beings are very proud of the fact that they are conscious in contrast to the animals, who are so unconscious. They don't have thought. We have this tremendous gift of thought, and we are self-conscious. But self-consciousness is not awareness. Does that make sense? Or did we respond to what you were saying?
Yeah.
That fear coming up?
Yeah.
Fear for oneself, of ending up in the mush?
No, it's all just, once you said the drop of water in the glass, I thought, oh, that sounds kind of nice. So I think of it that way. It's sort of like whichever image I have of it. It's either scary or
Comforting. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we hold on to them, to the good ones, because the scary ones are there. We need good ones in reserve.
Maybe entropy is where I've already arrived.
Hmm?
I said maybe entropy is where I've already arrived, in the sense of disorder, because you started talking about this in terms of some discussion that went on the other day, the fear of everything disintegrating. Have I got that right? And the horror movie that I've been referring to in these past 2 days is the sort of disintegration of the thoughts in my head, to the extent that one comes after another, and they're all different, and there's no chance to look at anything deeply. That's what I was trying to explain. And that's not a bunch of stuff from the far past that's been triggered by a catastrophe 6 weeks ago. And it's been going on for 6 weeks.
That's not a long time.
No, it isn't.
If you suffer from it, it is. But
yes, it's forever, but it's not a long time.
it's not a long time. But our patience is usually much shorter than that. We want instant result, instant relief, instant understanding. And yet things have built up over years and years and millennia into this result that is now manifesting. The horror movie, our thoughts just one after the other with no break. No break?
Oh yes, little break. Sure. Yes, little break.
And watch
and
what...
enjoy those little breaks.
Yeah, and watch the mind with those little breaks, because immediately I want to have more, and that's the thought process again.
Yeah.
So can one let those happen and just let them happen, like a bird fluttering off?
Well, I let them happen, but I enjoy them.
Can one look at that, who the enjoyer is? And I don't mean it in any kind of fancy way. Questioning the separation, that there is someone who is enjoying, or is there just the joy of it?
Okay, that's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
There are breaks of joy in the disintegration.
Yeah.
Yes.
And let it be like this, without wanting it to be different?
I've had no trouble letting the breaks of joy be, but I have had difficulty letting the disintegration just roll on.
And it's hard, because obviously one doesn't want that.
But maybe that's what that's, yeah, but maybe I have to drop the expectation of being able to stop it.
No expectation.
Yeah.
It's all extra, and it's energy used up, which isn't there for just listening. The expectation and the hanging on to and the not wanting to go on with it. All of this uses tremendous amounts of energy, which are then not there for just simply openly being there whenever. not making this into a goal or expectation of this now to increase or whatever. Yet at the same time learning that this is going on. And that there is also joy when something is really seen and discovered. Who knows why, but this is an immense joy to see something truthfully that's happening. It could be something that is pain-producing, doesn't matter. But to see something that is truthfully so, and that there is energy, whatever. And then to not do something about it immediately. Trying to put preservatives in it. To watch that doing mind without doing anything about it. And most of the time we don't watch because the movies are going on. Maybe not always horror movies, but it's just how this brain works. Not in you or you, but in all of us.
I'm just thinking about the place of concentration within the work. So in my own experience is concentration in the form of an absorption. It could be with work, it could be with a problem. It's a centrifugal movement and it cuts out other things. In one period of my life I had many thoughts running through my head. And when it got really too crazy, I had to focus in one thing was in front of me and just concentrate on that. And that made the whole process die out. So I found out that that's a function for me of concentration. And the opposite of concentration, I found this opening up and this questioning without any answers. It's very spacious. And the opposite of, I don't know, centrifugal and the other, I don't know what's the name.
Centripetal, I think.
Centripetal, that's it. And I found here in myself very much a centrifugal attitude, because you're caught with something bothers you. And being here, this centripetal, just open up and listen to the birds. And still they are alternating one after the other. So could you maybe comment?
Alternating because you don't want this scatteredness, is that it? You want to have something to hold on to.
It's not scattered.
Why do you concentrate then?
What?
Why do you focus on something in front of you? You said, if I understand...
In my life when all these thoughts were running, I found that concentrating somehow gives peace.
I mean, talking about the past.
You're shutting out, I was thinking about the iceberg.
Yeah.
Meditation
Yeah.
practice, what you're doing, you're concentrating on something
Yeah.
that shuts out other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And how intense the iceberg is gone.
Yeah.
So that's what was on my mind.
But you're answering it yourself. The concentration has bonuses, has good effects in tranquilizing the mind and shutting out disturbing movements, controlling them through the concentrative effort. And in the concentrative effort there is the me that wants peace of mind. It's not an openness of wondering what is happening this moment, but it is effective.
It's a control.
Yeah. And I don't know whether I mentioned to you or here sometime when a doctor was at one of the retreats in California, and I'd been talking about the difference between concentration and open awareness, and she said, I know that I'm using my practice to tranquilize the brain. I can tell where it happens, but I find it's better than taking tranquilizers. And that's what I'm doing this for. This other doesn't interest me. I don't know. She never came back. But the real scary thing is it possible in the midst of what you were describing, thoughts all over the place, to find a quiet spot of listening, a spot which has no time about it, the time of success or accomplishment. No such time in it. Just, we've used this analogy often, the still eye of the tornado, in which, in spite of all the immense movement and scattering and whirling around, there is no movement. One person once told me it took me years to find that spot. And she didn't say it was years of concentration. It was probably years of wondering and looking in the midst of turbulence. Not attacking the turbulence or trying to do something about it, just listening. Quietly listening to the turbulence, is that it? Without trying to do something about it. You could say this is impossible, it's nonsense. But one could also leave it sit there. Not know whether it's right or wrong, but wonder about it.
And yet we do seem to undertake certain activities then in order maybe to find that space or that listening.
Yes.
I mean, the fact that we are here, sitting here, that we choose to sit for periods of time in stillness and quietness and silence, instead of giving in to whatever impulses we might have to be just running around the room, talking.
So you're asking, this seems to be a contradiction. On the one hand, saying, no doing, just listening, and yet doing a lot, coming all the way from Europe or California, coming to retreats, and it takes a lot of work at home to prepare, to come here from his children, to put food in the refrigerator, which they then don't eat anyways. It's a contradiction. But it doesn't need to be. So the effort is made to come here, to fix up things at home, to be here, train ticket or plane ticket when you have to do overwork, to overtime, get extra money and so forth. And then one ends up on one of these mats here. And then what? Look at the whole drive that comes, I want to achieve something after all of these sacrifices. This can all be looked at without doing something about it. All the expectations that are so palpably manifest in the mind and body to shed light on this whole thing. But shedding light, it sounds like transitive, but it is just, awareness is not transitive from here to there. It's just awareness. And it can only take place when there is no doer in the middle. That's a fact. So can the doer be quiet without being made to shut up through concentrative and other practices? That's the question. Can that doer be quiet or be quietly observed in all its activities, which are conditioned, habitual, programmed? And is observation of that a separate doing, or does it have nothing to do with doing? It just happens when the mind is curious and interested. And curiosity and interest brings about listening, and in order to listen, there has to be some quiet. The mind knows that. The body knows that. We want to listen to whether there are birds singing or what else is going on beside this person here talking. We have to be quiet. Any other questions? It's 12:09. We'll end here for today.